Good evening, my fellow Americans. This is the 26th of June, 2025 edition of A Quiet Rage. Straight out of the gate, I want to congratulate the fine people of New York City on the results of the recent mayoral primary, specifically, of course, in the Democratic Party. The Republican ran unopposed. In a city like New York, it's kind of unlikely that a Republican is going to win nowadays. We'll see. The winner of the Democratic primary was Zohran Mamdani. I'm fairly certain I'm pronouncing that correctly. I will put a link to his campaign in the comment or in the description, so you can check him out. So he won, but kind of more importantly, Andrew Cuomo lost. If you don't know what a terrible person Andrew Cuomo is, don't take my word for it. He is a terrible person. Go ahead. I mean, just Google Andrew Cuomo scandal. It's that easy. He's a sexist. He's a bully. He's just all around not a good person. And this was a victory for ranked choice voting, which I've talked about in an earlier episode. And I really do think that regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, ranked choice voting should be something that we can all get behind. The full results for ranked choices won't be out until I think the website said next Tuesday. So next week. That's fine. Something else I wanted to say about that, and it escapes me at the moment. So we'll just press on. The main thrust of what I wanted to talk about in today's episode is the news conference that the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, or SECDEF for short, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, he's an Air Force general, this morning at the Pentagon briefing room, they gave a joint brief and press conference, talking about the recent bombing of Iranian nuclear sites by the United States military, the Air Force, and I believe it was Air Force B-2 bombers, and at least one submarine some of my brothers and sisters launched Tomahawk cruise missiles at an above ground nuclear facility. I'll put a link to the C-SPAN video so you can watch it for yourself without any sort of spin, just as I did. The general did a fantastic job relaying how for 15 years, so prior to Trump won, when Obama was in office, for 15 years, people in the intelligence community have been gathering information on at least the one Fordow, at least that one particular nuclear site. And that's he did a great job. That's great. There are many things that the SECDEF did and said that frankly, well, they were embarrassing. One, his behavior was beneath the dignity of the office of the Secretary of Defense, in my estimation. And they were also indicative of just the general attitude of this administration as a whole. He whined, and he didn't actually cry tears, but he whined and cried. He gaslit or attempted to gaslight us. He made boastful claims that are as yet, let's just, right at the 3-minute mark, he says, and I encourage you, again, to watch this. You only have to go about 3 minutes in to get this. He says, quote, President Trump ordered the most complex and secretive military operation in history. And goes on to say that this brings an end of the 12-day war. End quote. Most complex and secretive military operation in history. Mr. Secretary, General Eisenhower and the other 15 all 15 countries that engaged in Operation Overlord, the D-Day invasion, they'd like a word. Now, was this bombing of the Iranian nuclear sites complex and secretive? Yes. Was it the most complex and or secretive in history? Absolutely it was not. How dare I say such a thing? I've never flown a B-2 bomber. That's true. But I was on a submarine for 20 years. Not the same one, but I was a submarine sailor for 20 years. So I know from our end how that stuff works. And it is complex, and it must, by its nature, be secretive. But let's not make this the greatest thing ever done in the history of the United States military. Because it wasn't. It was well executed, absolutely, and well coordinated, but it wasn't the greatest thing ever. And it doesn't. Why does everything that Trump administration does have to be the greatest? It's like nothing anyone's ever seen. If we did a drinking game where we all took a sip of something, every time Trump said it's like nobody's ever seen, we would all die of alcohol poisoning. I don't understand why that's a verbal tick for that man. I also don't understand why MAGA people seem to believe him when he says greatest it's ever been, like nobody's ever seen, etc. So then Pete Kegstand went on to state that press coverage, and he pointed at MSNBC, he pointed at his former colleague at Fox News, and a couple others, and said, you, the press, are undermining the pilot's success. That there are all these stories that have been written about how the decimation or what was the other word? Obliteration of these nuclear sites was blown out of proportion. It wasn't as all-encompassing as Trump made it out to be. And that anybody saying that somehow undermines the skill, ability, or effectiveness of these pilots and the crew of these submarines, Navy ships that launched these Tomahawks. I didn't do an exhaustive search, I'll grant you that, but I did a Google search real quick for U.S. bombs Iranian nuclear sites, and I looked at Fox News. I looked at a site, Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. I looked at Al Jazeera. I looked at Bloomberg. Just to get a feel none of those that I looked at, and none of the headlines or any of the commentary that I've seen since this Operation Midnight Hammer, nobody's ever said that I could see. Feel free, if you know of an article that says these pilots didn't hit what they were trying to hit, these guys don't know what they're doing, Air Force and the Navy, they're all jacked up, or anything like that, anything implying that it was the fault of the sailors and the airmen that the damage wasn't exactly what Trump said it was. Find me that article, find me that news clip, and I'll climb down off this hill. But for the Secretary of Defense to accuse the press as a whole of undermining these service members is patently ridiculous. And as I said, it's indicative of the general tone, the general attitude of this administration. We're going to gaslight you and call you stupid for not believing us. And it just, I'm fucking irritated by this. So, as I said, I'll put the link in there. You can have a look at it yourself. It's certainly worth addressing why it might be that the press would write stories that are in opposition to what the President of the United States says. If you ask me, that is the job, actually, of the press, is not to take everything that a politician says as gospel truth. Their job is to go do some research, go talk to some sources, and get corroborating stories. That's the job of the press. They're not supposed to take everything that a politician says and just and just write it and just go with it. That's one thing. But also, multiple members of this administration have lied directly to our faces. Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. Pete Hegseth himself, the Secretary of Defense. He's lied straight to our face. And don't even get me started on the lies of this president, the President of these United States. Our president lies to us all the time. So, I mean, the Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth and others lied directly to our faces about the chat group, that there was no classified information in that chat group when there absolutely was classified information. Just because it didn't say classified stamped at the top and bottom as a document is supposed to be, that doesn't mean it's not classified. So the press is not going to believe you, sir, just because you say it was a resounding success. That's not going to happen. Sorry. This is the world you created by lying to us all the time. Oh, I just remembered the other thing I wanted to mention about Mr. Mamdani. And I'll close with this. To my MAGA friends, it would be in your best interest if you would learn, for the sake of this conversation of the New York City mayoral race going forward, and especially should Mr. Mamdani win and be elected mayor of New York City, it would be in your best interest, Mr. and Mrs. MAGA, to learn and understand the difference between socialist and democratic socialist. It's kind of like the difference between four-wheeled vehicle and four-wheel drive vehicle. Adding just one word makes a big difference. And I'm going to read. Okay, I'm probably going to be accused of using a dodgy site again, but I don't care. If you think you can do this better, have at it. From the Wikipedia article, rather extensive, on democratic socialism. What is it? It is a left-wing economic and political philosophy that supports political democracy and some form of a socially owned economy, with a particular emphasis on economic democracy, workplace democracy, and workers' self-management within a market socialist, decentralized planned, or democratic centrally planned socialist economy. There's a lot of words there, but none of them are evil. None of them are bad. Socialism isn't the dirty word that you think it is. It really isn't. So, it would, as I said, it would be in your best interest to not look stupid and claim that this guy is a socialist who is going to just take us back to turn us into Venezuela, turn New York City into Venezuela. Because it's simply not the case. I've looked at his website. As I said, I'll put it in the link, and I'll put the link in the description. You can have a look at it yourself. I don't think there's anything. There are no boogeymen hiding in the platform of his election campaign. So that's all I have for you. I will say, what can we do? As I've said before, watch this kind of stuff on C-SPAN. Again, they don't put any spin on it. They'll show you what was said, and then they'll go back to the studio and they'll have people call in, but they don't make their anchors don't make commentary. They don't spin anything. You can hear exactly what our elected and appointed officials in the federal government have to say. So I highly recommend that. Also, if the topic of ranked choice voting comes up in a jurisdiction in which you reside, learn about it and push for it. Honestly, if you just learn a little bit about it, I'll see if I'll find the link where the episode where I talked about it previously. I'll see if I can put those in the description. It's regardless of your political affiliation, everyone should be on board with ranked choice voting. So push for that. And as always, find your like-minded people. Do a Google search for where, the city or the county or wherever you live, Democrats, city of, county of, Democrats, and go to a meeting. Gather with your people. There are more of us out there than it seems. I promise you. In closing, if, like me, you understand that the Secretary of Defense whining and crying about the press coverage of an illegal bombing run on a sovereign country is beneath the dignity of his office, then keep your powder dry and keep that quiet rage. Good night, my fellow Americans.